And what about monitors? Do you do you use headphones at all, or you've got a set of monitors at home? Or
Well, I use at home. I have HR824s, the Mackies, the first version.
again, kind of a drum and bass staple.
Yeah,
That one, yeah.
right. And then I've got old NS10Ms. They never die. And eventually, I want to get some Adams, like some P22As. Just like everyone I know who's ever had them, just turns out amazing mixes. So further down the pipe, that's something I'll get.
That's the next thing.
But yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of like Apogee conversion as well. Like I use like a Rosetta 800 in the studio. I feel like out of many of the things I've bought, like that has made one of the biggest differences. And I mean, I can just almost compare like Mixdown to Mixdown and like what really just brought things up, especially for resampling. I mean, even just the duet sounds amazing.
Yeah, I was going to say, especially if you're putting it through the desk
Yeah.
and through the desk and through the desk, then you want to make sure you've got good converters, right?
Absolutely.
So you're saying you don't use much outboard. Do you use any outboard, or is it just your converters and the desk? Or
Well, yeah, these days outboard. What do you mean as far as effects goes?
like effects or compressors or...
Yeah, I rarely
it's
use
all in the
outboard.
box.
Yeah, well, anything I would consider being even slightly outboard is the UAD stuff.
Yeah.
Universal Audio just kills it. And I bought a newer MacBook Pro with the SD card on it, the SD card slot, and I was just gutted when I got it because I couldn't use I have one of those little expanders. I couldn't use the damn thing anymore, so I have to like bounce stuff to my old computer, run it through like the plugins I like the LA2A emulator. I also hate to say it, I actually like sucked it up and bought the Waves CLA pack because they have an LA2A emulator in there. Even though I'm not the biggest fan of their overpriced software, but I really needed that to just work quick on, instead of having to bounce takes back and forth.
Yeah, the proprietary hardware thing, it's a bit of a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
I don't know, I think processors are now at the point where I don't know whether that stuff's really necessary.
Yeah, I mean, it really is, but apparently, I mean, I've asked people who seem to know a bit more about it, and they said that they do something with up conversion, and that's why the plugins sound so good, and just run offline. I don't know, or run externally. Sorry, but it's good sounding stuff. I mean, that's all I know, and I really wish they will make just versions that work in the box and theoretically, or work, I guess, in the computer, not externally. That sound just as good.
Yeah, that would be nice. I mean, I guess this also could be a piracy thing as well.
Yeah, I figured that because it's the ultimate dongle when you have to have the hardware to run it. So.
Exactly. What about acoustic treatment? Something where a lot of people fall down, a lot of people fail. It's the easiest thing to ignore.
That's very true.
Have you, tell the truth, have you invested in acoustic treatment in your space?
I have, and I used to use it a fair bit. The room in Atlanta was all wood. Like hardwood floors, the ceiling, walls. So I just took a bunch of RLX and just coated the room in it, which really helped out a lot. The only thing was I really kind of wish I put a carpet on the floor in there, but it didn't really matter. I mean, it still sounded great. Like it was... It ended up working out very well. In the current room I'm in, I didn't really need to put anything up. It sounded good enough to begin with. I mean, granted, maybe I could throw up some RLX, but the problem is I have a window on one side, and I don't want to cover up the window.
Yeah.
So it's the kind of thing where, I either, it's a completely dark room or I have a little bit of sunlight.
Yeah.
So I opted for that. And it sounds good. I mean, I'm happy with the room I'm in. It's oddly enough, very well tuned for what I'm doing.
Okay, cool. What DAW are you using? What workstation?
Oh yeah, a couple. We are well-known fans of Reason. Lately, Ableton Live, not just for our live sets, but just for assembling tracks because it's so quick to work in. Now, unfortunately, the internal sound engine sounds like shit. I don't know if it's just the internal software or the internal plugins. I mix everything down in Logic Pro. And with Computer Club, with that project, I almost exclusively use Logic Pro. One of the reasons I work in Ableton a lot with Evol 10 is because all of us use it. And certain things just run so well, like with the way it automates, like the new 8.0, the way it thinks about automation. It's very nice. You can work so quick in it. I really think a lot of programs could take a cue from them. But I don't know.
Just not happy with the sound though.
Yeah, like that's the only thing. Other than that, it's a killer program.
And what are you guys doing, like, performance-wise? Are you CDs, still on dub plates, laptops? What are you...
Well, with DJ sets, generally it's CDs. But, yeah, we've been going around the U.S. We did a full tour in, like, October, November. And, yeah, just doing the Ableton Live thing, controllers, the works. We actually have a live, like a studio performance of our live set that we've been sitting on for a while. We were going to release it on a fairly big website for downloading TV shows and stuff like that, but they got taken down by the MPAA or someone else for TV, and it was like the week it was going to come out.
Oh, man.
So now we're just kind of sitting there scratching our heads. What's the biggest way we can get this out there for everyone to hear it? So
that's a killer.
Coming very soon, so look out for it.
Cool. Okay, so, I mean, you're saying using all these different DAWs, which can be a pain in the ass. One question I have for you, which is kind of more of a personal question for me that I'm struggling with, is working with other people. I'm starting to do more remixes and stuff.
Yeah.
And when people are using different workstations, it can be, for collaborations more than remixes, obviously. It can start to become a bit of a nightmare. How do you approach that?
Again, common ground is the best thing you can do. If there's a program everyone can work in, and that's one of the reasons, I mean, Evil Intent is a great example. All three of us, like, our favorite softwares are different things. AJ is a big fan of Cubase. He uses that a lot. I'm a big Logic guy. But we all seem to kind of meet in the middle at Ableton Live. And, you know, again, like, in one of the really good things about the new version, you can freeze and flatten tracks. So if you use plugins another guy might not have, doesn't matter, it's all there now. I just have to make sure you collect it all, save that whole thing, and it's all there. The other thing is just pop out stems, you know, pop everything out, submixes on some things. That seems to be the way that works best for a lot of collaborations, because there's a lot of people I know who are Fruity Loops users, and nothing against them, and Fruity Loops sounds amazing. I know people who turn out the most amazing mixdowns out of that program. Like, anyone who hates on it doesn't know what's up. Fruity Loops has some amazing functionality that I wish other programs would have, like peak controllers, just brilliant. But the one problem is it works very different from most other DAWs. So someone who's very used to that program might have trouble, like, you know, taking on the Cubase, Pro Tools, Logic kind of world. I mean, not to be said that, you know, it's completely different, but I just know, like, a lot of guys who work really fast in Fruity, and it can just be a lot to sit behind something else. And yeah, so I mean, that's the kind of point I've noticed where it's good to just send stems, you know, if you're doing Fruity Studio and, you know, something else, and then just kind of figure out who's going to do the final mix.
Yeah. So I mean, you can bring it, if you have to, bring it together from two different things.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's always a way. If you're willing to find the way, there's always a way to do something. So that's the one thing I've noticed, and we live in a great era. You know, like today, there's so many tools at our fingertips that just even 10 years ago, you know, people didn't have access to. I mean, just especially considering just the computer world, the software world. I remember when I started out, and this kind of dates my age here a bit, but, you know, there was no virtual instruments. You know, what was in the box, there was just like choruses and reverbs and things like that. So, yeah, things have come a long way.
Yeah. So, Evil Intent, I remember one of the first songs I heard was Corrupt Cops.
Yeah.
I remember hearing the drums in my brain just going crazy, trying to figure out what these guys had done. So there's obviously some fairly intense editing going on there.
Yes.
Is that, how are you taking that on? Are you taking it just down to, like, a waveform and just manually cutting everything up?
You know, when we did those tunes, it was all in Reason up until the mixdown stage. And while we were doing it, we used to rely heavily on the velocity edits and tweaking the sampler in Reason in certain ways to get these desired effects. So especially with like Corrupt Cops is a good example. Like most of that glitching was all done in the sampler with like really fast notes, to where it almost becomes like a drum hit will become like granular synthesis. And, you know, stuff we'd kind of taken from the more experimental guys like Aphex Twin, Square Pusher, and what they were doing, and we were like, how can we kind of take this to a more dance floor feel? So how we found our way to doing that.